Somebody who understands the reality of Scott Brown is our next guest. He's the president of the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers Union. James Boland joins us from Washington, D.C. I think that it's really important that you and others who work every day, the members who have been unemployed and underemployed, who need good jobs at good wages, and need to help rebuild this country when it comes to the infrastructure, when it comes to, putting a better America in place every day. That is a modern country that is not looking backwards. And I want to get your thoughts about, how we go forward. And I've been talking the last hour, and this is sort of my own goal, that we need to start thinking about jobs in this country and having political leaders and others who are in the media talking about this. And that is 4%, full employment, and making sure that your friends at the Bricklayers and the Allied Craft Workers and our friends at the Laborers International, the Steel Workers, and the and many others, the Iron Workers and so forth, all who are on this hour, have a chance at a good job at a good wage and leave the next generation that's coming up behind you, those 20-somethings, the same opportunities. Not everybody is going to be a PhD. Not everybody's going to work for Apple Computer. And we need to make sure that there is a good job at a good wage for all of us. Your thoughts, Mr. Boland?
Well, Jeff, just to frame this, I first came to this country from Ireland in 1970. I was a college student at the time, and my uncles were in the construction business in Chicago, and it was the best business in the world to get a job in. And that's why I chose to come here and stay in 1974, and I've been working in the masonry trade ever since. Now, the sad truth is the standard of living was very good then, but there have been no meaningful increases over that period of time. It's gone up and down a little bit, but it's been stagnant, kind of mirroring the fortunes of the labor movement in America. And I know we have a bunch of able and earnest labor leaders in America at the moment, both at the national, state, and local level, but they have a very steep climb against the entrenched, powerful financial forces in this country, and the machine that is Fox News and its various entities out there that work so powerfully against us in the media. And, of course, that translates into anti-worker and anti-labor legislative efforts both at the federal, state, and local level. So we have all of that panoply of stuff to contend with at all times, on top of a really bad economy, the worst one in my lifetime. So we're working on against the forces coming against us, and we have to be creative at the same time because in all of this, especially in the construction industry, everything we've got, our good wages flow from collective bargaining, which is under attack. Our training funds are jointly trusted by labor and management. Our health and welfare funds, we have about $1 billion in those in the Bricklayers Union, jointly negotiated, jointly trusted. And we have $7 or $8 billion in pensions here that the employers and the union itself are committed to, and that our members expect us to protect for them going forward. So there's a whole lot of stuff that's been built up that's very worthwhile and that sets the standard for the construction industry that's been done by our own union here and by others that needs to be protected and built on going forward in very practical ways. And, many people would say many of our employers are much more conservative, mind-bent than myself, but the truth is we have sat down and we've built these things together over the years, and we need to commit to lobby together to sustain all of this going forward and to create the jobs that support it. So that's my broad brush approach to reality and the challenges that face people like myself.
Well, I think it's critical that that we pull together an opportunity for those Americans who want to work, who want to have a good job at a good wage. And my goal is to get to full employment, to get to 4%. And I think that if people start thinking that way, that we're never going to get ahead if you're rooting for a team that only includes a certain few. Eventually there are not going to be enough seats at the table because their whole concept is to just keep the same people who have been at the table for the last 40 years, the last 60 years, as long as this country has been founded. And they don't want to bring in new people. They don't want to bring in somebody who is a Irish immigrant. They don't want to bring in an African American or a Latino or a woman or a person who is different sexual orientation than themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that is what you and the labor movement have been fighting for many years, fighting against, to include a broader America, a working class America and a middle class America, to have a chance at the American dream. Just like the guy who owns the Rolls Royce or the Lamborghini. There's a lot of Fords and Chevys out there, and there are a lot of people who would like to get that brand new version of it, as opposed to driving the one that from 1989. And I think that there is a real need to do all this, and I'm really interested in how we can go about doing it. Now, one of the things that your bricklayers and others do is Rebuild America, the name of the show. Mm-hmm. There is Jared Bernstein yesterday was on our show. He's, of course, the former economic advisor to Vice President Biden and economic advisor to the President Obama's task force on the economy. And, he offered this proposal, FAST program, to rebuild schools. Now, a lot of bricklayers can be involved in the bricks and mortar. They can be computer guys that are involved in the broadband energy. So there are things. Your thoughts about where bricklayers can be and how rebuilding America can be part of it. Your thoughts?
Well, it's huge for us. When people aren't building new buildings, corporations, institutions, or entities, they have to maintain the buildings that are in place. There's an example. I worked in San Francisco. One of the famous buildings in San Francisco is the Telephone Building. Back in the 1980s, it's a terracotta building. We restored it completely. Fantastic. I see they are about ready to do another $100 million job on that building. We're just not the bricklayers. In our union, we have the allied craft workers, who include tile setters, terrazzo mechanics, stone masons, marble masons, and all the various masonry trades. And there's a certain amount of cross-training that goes on in that. Mm-hmm. So when somebody comes in to upgrade a building, they're probably doing it for all kinds of reasons. So not just the space, not just the exterior, but, the utilization of that space. And every craft in the building trades benefits when something like that happens. They need new electrical. They probably have to reroute plumbing, all new tile work, move partitions around. It's just everybody benefits once you undertake to do something like that. So, we never get into the minutiae of it, but we're always on the jobs with all our colleagues from the building trades. So, if let me step back and come at your question another way. There's a lot of deadlock on Capitol Hill. That's very unfortunate. I probably would have liked to have seen a good bit more public spending. I give the president credit for what he did for the financial industry. He didn't let it collapse. He did the same for the auto industry. But we need it for infrastructure. We need it for public buildings across the country. He has to fight, and the Democrats have to fight tooth and nail for every inch of that ground. And I doubt that we'll make a whole lot of progress between now and the end of the year. Maybe after the election, people will clear their heads a little bit, and there'll be less of this factionalism within the Republican Party, and we may get some moderates in there that would be interested in the general good of the country instead of just beating the incumbent. But politics are holding things back a lot. The corporations are sitting on $2 trillion here at home that they're not ready to move at this time. And we also know that there's over $1 trillion abroad that they don't want to repatriate until they can make a deal on the taxes, and they're not in any hurry to do that either. We've got another issue as well. We've got a real reluctance for the banks to lend to small businessmen.
Yes.
And we know that there's unfunded liability in our pensions. There's some mystery about health care. And everybody wants the people who run the country, the legislature, to bring some stability and an outlook for the future to all of this. So that requires responsible legislative action so that we know our members can hold on to their pensions. We can amortize the losses that the crash brought over a long period of time. And the bankers know that our employers aren't entirely on the hook for the risk and can start lending again, so there's some sense of normalcy returns to all of this for everybody. So there's a whole lot of practical, unforeseen stuff that this crash of 2008 thrust upon every institution and every business in the country, and we're sort of working our way out of the wreckage at the moment, from my perspective. Now, our union is probably, and our industry is at about 2/3 of capacity at the moment, which is executing projects that are online and basic maintenance. But as you point out, there's all kinds of opportunity to repair our existing building stock, roads, highways, bridges, and build up the schools.
Exactly. Yes. Stay with us. We're going to take a brief time out here, come back with James Boland, President of the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers Union. You need to hear this, folks. We'll be back.
You're listening to Rebuild America.
All right, we're talking with James Boland, President of the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers Union. And James was talking on where we need to go from here when we have to go to commercial break. James, thank you for being with us again.
You're welcome.
Thank you for staying. I often look, and as you grew up in Ireland, you looked around Europe and where a lot of people, obviously, were kind of recovering after the war and so forth, but it's a different world now. And, just as an example, German government, heavily unionized, although led by a center-right conservative, Miss Merkel, they have gone ahead and produced a game plan that includes a heavy emphasis upon wind and solar, a heavy emphasis upon rebuilding their infrastructure, the well-known for the Autobahn. They have done things that both reduce the carbon footprint, at the same time protect the jobs that are there. And they've had to have the fight like we do with China and so forth. Do you think that we can learn, this is an easy question, but let me just rephrase it. I think that we can learn so much from our friends in Europe who understand that a good job at a good wage is the way to go, and understand that you can do things like reduce the carbon footprint and protect our planet, and at the same time protect the jobs. And I just think there's a blueprint there that we can follow. Maybe you disagree. Your thoughts?
I agree completely. I grew up in a poor country in Ireland, and our eyes were always on Britain, Europe, and the United States. And of course, back in the 50s and 60s when I was growing up, the American economy was the model for the world. And it still is in some ways. But, we're looking at a time now where most of the profits for the S&P 500 come from outside the United States, right. 55 or 60%. And I'm not one that has anything against raising all boats across the world. I believe in that very much. But I think the leaf we take out of the German book is that you don't have a sustainable country or economy unless you have sustainable wages and jobs for the middle class and for a majority of the people in the whole country. And we're probably hit the saturation point on that in this country now, where people have to really think about good jobs at home to sustain what we got. And many of the other countries are catching up with us, and we need to keep the home fires burning if we're going to have influence abroad. And there's been a blind eye to that for quite some time here in this country, and it's time to refocus.
It certainly is. Look, we got a minute left here, James. I want to invite you back on again because I love your passion and what you bring to it. If people want to reach you, or if you want to be in communication with others, what's the best way to do that?
We got a website here at the Bricklayers. It's www.bacweb.org.
Fantastic.
And that is probably the best way to find us, okay?
Fantastic.
If somebody leaves a message or wants further contact with our organization or with me personally, that's a good way to get in the loop, okay?
Well, I thank you so much, James. A pleasure to have you on. Happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way.
The same to you, Jeff, and hopefully we talk again soon, and keep up the good work, okay?
Thank you so much. All the best to you, sir. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. This is Jeff Santos. You're listening to Rebuild America on the Revolution Radio Network.